Hi everyone. How are you doing? It's live time now. It's showtime. It's showtime. It's showtime. Karibu sana to the African Queen Mo show with the news live, and we're here with Susan, and I'm going to invite her immediately this time. Susan, let me get you in into the show. Welcome to the show, Susan. I hope you're well. Had a good day.
Yes, I have. Thank you.
Unanisikia vizuri?
Yeah, I can hear you well.
Okay, that's very good. Yeah. So anyway, you guys, we decided to start this show at 8:15 every day to try to make it more regular for everyone. I'm hoping that other people will come on board. I've tried to send you a link, some of you on your WhatsApp, and others have also just, the link is right there. So please share it with other people because today we're going to have a very interesting show. We have two guests. Hopefully the other one will show up at some point. But we're going to be discussing three issues. First of all, let me introduce myself. This is African Queen Mo, and I am a YouTuber. Well, I don't want to say influencer. I'm a YouTuber. I'm a researcher, and I'm also an interested party. I'm a Kenyan, and I live in Nairobi at the moment. And I'm looking forward, to chatting with you guys and to engaging more Kenyans. Come on board. We speak mostly in English because I've tried to speak Kiswahili and failed tremendously. Until we can actually get somebody who's a fabulous speaker on board, we would like to encourage you guys to speak both languages. If you're from different countries, I hope that you know that you will also learn Swahili and take this opportunity. So, my colleague over here, her name is Susan, and I'll allow Susan to introduce herself. Or would you
Yeah,
like me
good
to?
evening.
Okay.
Sorry, what did you say, Maureen?
I said I'd like you to introduce yourself, but let me help you a little bit there. Susan is our
Okay.
lawyer on board here, and she's available for any questions that you might have. She's available even out of the studio if you'd like to engage her. She's a family lawyer. She's a fabulous, fabulous friend of mine and a wonderful, wonderful lawyer, very intelligent, fun person, and at the same time, somebody who's a very good adult trainer. So, I tell you, if you are in Susan's class, you are not going to sleep. I can tell you that for sure. So you will enjoy the show. And please come on board. You can actually go into the comment section and comment. I can see we have 2 or 3 people already joining us. Go to the comment section. I have a link in there. You can join us in studio. Or you can just go ahead and listen. Send me your comments. Some of you who already know my contacts, you can do that. Some people have been sending me comments about this show because it talks about rather sensitive issues sometimes. But today we have a very interesting topic. So let Susan introduce herself first, and then I'll tell you the topic.
Um, as Maureen said, I'm a lawyer. I've not been in formal practice for many years. I diversified, but I've still maintained my interest in certain areas of the law in which I had specialized. Yeah, so I've been working with Maureen. I also did some training as a mediator because I felt that the law sometimes doesn't really give the results that make the parties happy. Mediation offers that alternative where the underlying interests of the parties are considered, and we're able to come out with a win-win situation. So it's one where the parties are engaged in the final decision, they're more engaged in it. The difference between that and the practice of law is the law will apply, and sometimes some people will not be happy with the result. So mediation is the softer option, and it's one that engages the parties more because we listen more. They speak and we listen more. So we just guide the conversation and help the parties to arrive at a conclusion. So I've been working with Maureen for many years, facilitating workshops with Maureen, and also picking up on the monitoring and evaluation. She's a specialist in that. Yeah, so I'm really happy to be here. I love talking to people, and I love learning and sharing what I know with other people.
Wonderful, Susan. And in this show, remember to call me Queen Mo, my friend, because We are getting rid of those Mzungu names. Very soon you'll be hearing my African name on here. But that's
Oops, I
okay.
didn't know.
Where? You call me those are the names where I'll just disown you. Huh? But anyway, guys, yeah, so you heard from Susan that she's a qualified mediator. So if you have any squabbles in the family or just relationships or any sort of issues that you need handled outside of court, there's Susan for you, you know. And here I am. If you want projects evaluated, monitored, if you want those people who know that stuff, here I am. Yeah. But right now we are actually just using our knowledge and our training and you know, basically our skills, you know, to try to bring on board sorry, to try to share and to share our skills and our knowledge with other people, you know. And that's just, you know, social media has provided this opportunity. Things that we used to do in classrooms and training classrooms and formal forums, now we can do today. So today's topic is about, let me get right into it, okay? So today we're going to be discussing three main issues, okay? The first issue is that we're going to do a little bit of a news roundup in terms of where are we, you know? Where are we here in Kenya specifically, you know, in terms of why, yeah, in terms of the news. We know that today there was a celebration of the Supreme Court. Don't ask me why Supreme Court was celebrating, but Susan will explain. Okay, so the Supreme Court was celebrating 12 years, and we would like to find out what they were discussing. All I saw is that the president was talking to the judges, and I picked up one or two things, but didn't really have time to listen. So Susan will explain that. Okay. At the same time, we have also seen that in the news, there are still reports of women losing their lives. I had a live show yesterday where I was discussing this issue of, we would call it crimes against women. In some cases, it's femicide, and in some cases, it's just homicide and crimes against women based on misogyny and many other reasons. And so these continue to be reported. And, you know, we feel like we are being overtaken by events because I almost cannot catch up. It's creating a situation, an atmosphere in the country, which is very, very scary for women. Women are feeling, you know, insecure in the country. And anybody who has a female in their family should be concerned if they're not already. Yeah. So that's the second issue. The third issue that we're going to be discussing, and which we're going to discuss in more detail, is the American election. And why is it that the American election that is actually happening tomorrow, just discovered from Susan, that is actually tomorrow, Tuesday, 5th of November. Why should Africans even be concerned about the American election? Why? You know, why? How will it impact on us? How will we be impacted by the American election? Yeah. So why don't I just start with a little bit of a news roundup in terms of um, as of today, I have actually seen that there has been another case of a femicide reported in Kenya. It's like every single day,
Yeah, that's good.
unfortunately, I have to be giving you bad news. Yeah.
Yeah.
Another woman, yeah, it's really an
Mm.
epidemic that we're looking at over here. Okay. It's an epidemic, actually, and it's very bad. This woman was allegedly stabbed to death by her boyfriend in Kahawa West. You see, this is November 2nd. It was published actually yesterday while I was actually having my show. The day before, actually, it was published that there was a woman. Police in Kasarani, Nairobi County, have launched a manhunt for a suspect accused of stabbing his girlfriend to death before fleeing the scene. George Mutegi was identified as a person of interest after the lifeless body of his lover, Lillian Aching Aluko, was discovered by police at his three-bedroom apartment in Kahawa West with multiple stab wounds. Detectives likewise recovered a kitchen knife at the crime scene, believed to be the murder weapon. A kitchen knife. So, I mean, you know, guys, without even having to mention the number of cases, all you will notice with Kenya is that so many femicides, so many killings of women. Just the other day, a body was discovered again at the cemetery. Actually, the body that was said to be that of a female was discovered at the cemetery, partially processed, by the way, guys, partially processed. And that means that not only was it just, you know, the gory, you know, just cut up, you know, pieces of flesh and things like that, but this was even processed in terms of potential heat treatment, cooking. Okay? So women are scared. Women, we can tell you as women here that it is absolutely terrifying to be in Kenya right now. It's terrifying. These are stories that you hear about. We used to hear about these stories in the US. I used to hear about serial murderers and what they used to do to women and stuffing them in places and women being corpses being found in forests and searches. But, and you know, at least in the US, you would see that there would be searches for for the criminal. But in Kenya, the thing that makes it even more frightening is the deafening silence from all the institutions that are supposed to be actually protecting us, you know, such as the Federation of Kenyan Women Lawyers, we don't hear from, you know, and others that Susan may actually be knowledgeable about. We do hear like the DCI, the Directorate of Criminal Investigations, is following up the police. At least I feel that the Deputy Inspector of Police, at least he was, you know, bold enough to state that 97 women's lives have been lost in the last 90 days. Now, can we add 98? Probably 99, probably 100, and all the other unreported cases. So at the moment, we are facing a crisis in Kenya in the area of femicide. And femicide in Kenya. The question is, even media houses such as Al Jazeera are wondering, you know, what's causing the epidemic of violence against women. And actually, just as far back as January 27th, 2024, that's, you know, this year, they were talking about, there was a report by a lady called Shola, or by, I think it's a man, maybe Shola, I don't know if it's Shola, Shawal Lawal. The murders of two Kenyan women this month are spotlighted a worrying regularity in gender-based violence in the East African country, with activists calling for more government measures to protect women. Okay. In this particular case, they were reporting about this lady called Rita Waeni, a 20-year-old student who was killed and dismembered in a short-let apartment in the capital. And days before, a popular Instagram figure, Starlet Wahoo, 26, was found dead in an Airbnb room, bleeding out of fatal stab wounds by the man that she met online. And my question is, why are women getting killed this way? Why are women losing their lives? Why are so many women losing their wives in these very violent means in this country? Yeah. And it's unfortunate, but this is just reporting, you know, that the news is there. And I'm hoping that this will be a discussion and not a lecture series where we invite you to provide your opinions. In the comment section, we ask you to be as respectful as possible, because we are two professionals here. We don't take crap. We're not interested. We didn't spend our time to come over here to get abused or insulted or to hear insults and abuse against victims. We want to understand why it's happening. And we also want to see whether we can propose solutions to the problem, if there are, because Susan is a mediator. Let's use her skills for mediation, yeah, to try to see how we can address this particular issue. Now, Susan will give us a little bit of a roundup, I believe, if Susan is ready, about what happened today with the Supreme Court, because it's also, you know, about the judiciary, about having access to justice for Kenyans. The Supreme Court today had a celebration, and I saw the president was speaking today. What was he speaking about? Susan, maybe?
Yeah, thank you. The Supreme Court was celebrating. It was the title of their celebration was the Supreme Court at 12. So they have been operating for 12 years now, and so it was a time of reflection when they were looking back and looking back and also critiquing, you know, their achievements, and looking, it was a reflective moment. In fact, to use the words of the Chief Justice, she said it was a time, the theme was reflecting and introspecting on the Supreme Court, 12 years of jurisprudence. They were celebrating milestones and also critically examining their role in the democracy. And one of the key things they've realized was that institutions matter. Here she was talking really about the institutions that make our government, that are the cornerstone of our constitution. So we have the three. There's the executive, which consists of the presidency. Then we have the judiciary, which is them. and then is the whole court system and tribunals. And then we have the parliament, which is made up of the two houses of parliament, the National Assembly and then the Senate. And then, of course, we have the independent commissions who play like a supportive role in different things, like the Independent Electoral and Boundary Commission. Their role really is to make sure that a free, fair, and transparent election is carried out. So she said that one thing that they wanted to underscore is that institutions matter. They said also that they recognize the role of the Supreme Court in being what they have seen is that, and what they've done, they've breathed life into the Constitution, and they breathed life into the legislation that governs the Supreme Court. And they have seen that it has a transformative role, and so it shapes Kenya's jurisprudence, social and political landscape and development. And they said that they have done a number of things of note. One of them is, of course, the hearing of the presidential elections. Apparently, there have been four. They've heard four presidential election petitions. And then there's also the advisory role that they play. And here they have provided guiding frameworks for devolution and even for regulating the bicameral parliament, so that they're regulating the relationship between the two houses of parliament to give that effect. And then also they have strengthened the democratic aspirations through, for instance, addressing the issue of public participation through recent judgments. They've also looked at individual rights, various rights, the land rights, human rights, social economic rights, justice, and also family law issues, and also housing rights. So the other thing she pointed out was that the decisions that the Supreme Court has made are being used globally in different parts of the region of Africa. They are being cited globally. Now, in this conference, they had invited judges from other jurisdictions, from other parts of the world. So it was, in effect, some form of peer review where they would have discussions, because, like I said, one of the things they wanted to do was critique and to analyze their role to strengthen their position. The other thing that Joki Dongo spoke about, which was interesting, was that they realized that they need to have a space where they engage with the public, members of public. So this conference was to allow for that, for people who are touched one way or the other by the decisions that they make. So this was like a tool that they were using. The conference was a tool for that engagement with the public, to get feedback from them and to explain and to demystify themselves. They said that they come under a lot of vilification, especially when they're doing the political cases, the cases which are charged with politics. One of the challenges they spoke about and they raised was that the issue of separation of powers and independence of the judiciary. They said that they have questions about regarding the funding, their independence, their funding, the attack on judicial officers, and the disobedience of court orders. We do know that there are a number of court orders that
Oops, it looks like we've lost Susan. I hope she'll reconnect again. But thank you so much. You see, Susan, that was a nice rundown of what the Supreme Court was claiming that they have been able to do, that they say that they shaped jurisprudence, that they have strengthened the aspirations of the public in public participation. The question is, do we agree? Do we as citizens agree that actually the Supreme Court has strengthened the participation, Yeah, let me just inform Susan that she's off. I'm not so sure whether I think she's probably realized. Yeah, hopefully she'll come back on. But anyway, the other thing they say, the decision of the Supreme Court have been used globally. However, they feel vilified in terms of the politics. I can understand why they would feel that way. And they're also calling for the separation of powers. Actually, the separation of powers, especially the non-interference and what they talked about, non-interference by the executive and the overreach of the executive. Yeah, so I hope that you guys can hear me clearly. And if you can't, please say something in the comment section, or we have Susan right back here. I hope, Susan, you're going to be able to come back on. Huh? Karibu sana as we wait for our third guest who is coming on board. We really hope that Susan will be able to join us. Yes, or could it be that my live stream has an issue? I hope not. Mine looks rather clear here. Susan, it looks like your live stream is not living. Huh? Okay, so oh, there you are. You're back. Finally.
Yeah, it's
Do we have a delay or what's
yeah.
going on?
My lights, the
The
lights,
Oh, the
yeah,
lights went off.
sorry, the lights are misbehaving. Yeah. So
Uh-oh.
basically, shall I go on?
Okay.
Yeah. So so
Yes,
basically,
go on.
so the Jockey and even actually Jockey Dongo and also the Chief Justice mentioned about the separation of powers and independence of the judiciary. Jockey went further to mention about funding. They're underfunded, and the attack on judicial officers. We see that type of exchange on the news and all that whenever they make a decision which doesn't please people, and also disobedience of court orders. Actually, the disobedience of the court orders, although the president said that they obey the court orders, the state obeys the court orders, we know that is not always the case. So for instance, the issue of um, instituting or getting the commissioners for replacing the commissioners for the independent um, election and boundaries commission. That order was made sometime in January, I think, by one of the lower courts, by the High Court or something like that. And up to today, we still don't have those commissioners. So that is not completely accurate that the state is obedient to court orders. We know there are other instances we can talk about. So basically, the president said, "Oh, we'll look into those
Can I can I
areas of
can I yeah, can I interrupt a little bit? Did you just say that
yeah."
the that the that who was claiming to be obedient to court orders? Really? Who?
The president said that they're obedient to court orders. He said he has been a client of the Supreme Court, and they have always respected and obeyed the court orders. So, so that's what he said. But we know there are a number of orders that the state, which is the executive, really has not obeyed. Like for example, the constitution of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission. An order was given by the High Court in January this year, and we're going toward the end of the year, and we still don't have commissioners who have been appointed to that commission. So, so basically, those are the issues she was raising. She also said that, it's she mentioned that though the courts have jurisdiction to address issues like the election petitions, and even they have an area where a gap or space in which they are mandated to intervene in political issues, like for instance the election petitions and also the impeachment issue. She said that the courts will only come in once the political issues have run their course. So it has to come to the end of its course before it comes to court. But she did say that they have found, her own observation is that all the presidential election issue disputes, the court has made a ruling that so and so was duly elected, so and so was. You have to repeat the election. Remember, we were told we have to repeat the election one time. So her observation, this is Chief Justice Martha Koome, was that she's found that the political class eventually go back to the drawing board, and then they form these governments which are more inclusive. So she was saying that the political class should be resolving their political questions, issues, and she said that they are able to address them. But my observation to that is that without the prompting of the judiciary, I don't think that those, middle ground or that sitting down with the opposition members would occur. They would still be polarized. So it still has a role to play in that. And the Supreme Court in election petitions has played that role of making a decision. At the end of it, some parties are still aggrieved, recognizing politically that it's not good for some parties to be completely aggrieved. The political class have sat down and found a way to have those governments. So we've had the Nusu Mkate, and now we're hearing the Kenya Kwanza government are talking about broad-based government. And I saw somebody asking, what does that mean? What does broad-based government mean? I guess they'll explain it to us, but it looks like it's a more inclusive government, and it even encroaches into parties which are supposed to be in the official opposition. Like right now we have ODM, but I was listening to a political analyst who was saying that it is the Kenya Kwanza, the UDA people who talk about broad-based, but ODM does not. So so there's still some, perhaps it's what you call, it's something, a label that has been given to something that is aspired to, but not necessarily fully understood by the actors. So that's it from the courts. For now, we'll be back. We'll have the roundup again, at least from the courts. The next big day should be on the 7th of November, when we find out what's going to happen during the impeachment case, because there's the mention then again. Over to you, Queen Mo.
Thanks, Susan. That was really thorough. That was a nice, thorough analysis. And it's good to see that the courts really believe that they have contributed to non-polarizing politics in Kenya. In other words, getting people to sit down and to plan a nusu mukate or a handshake or something that's more inclusive, like what they're calling the broad-based government. But the question is, doesn't that also mean that our elections are faulty? If already the elections cannot guarantee a broad-based government, in other words, where everybody feels that they have equal chance for their vote to be counted, to me, you have the whole population at that time already voting. We have the whole population of voters who want to vote, voting. So the question is there, or maybe that's an assumption that I have, because of course there are people who cannot go to the voting stations, the ones who are both locally in the country, and the ones who are outside the country also cannot vote by email, electronically and stuff like that. And yet, what is so interesting is that things like petitions, applications by the court are filed electronically. But do we have electronic voting? Is it possible to vote electronically? And also, again, the public participation is electronic, but why is voting not electronic yet? I wonder to myself, and if the IEBC hasn't been constituted, isn't that supposed to be part of their mandate to be working on an electronic voting register? Those are kinds of the questions that I have. And this is not really for you necessarily to answer. Anybody could answer these questions who are within our show. Anyone can answer these questions, really, Yeah. But apart from that, just one more. Yeah, just take that one down and put it in the parking lot. Remember, you used to have a parking lot in our training sessions. The question is that, is our elections free and fair? Are they? And then are our voting patterns free and fair? Because that would already guarantee a broad-based government or inclusive government. That's a question from me. The other point is that when I listened to the president speak today, he said, "My dear, my sister Njoki." I was like, "My sister Njoki, who's that?" Njoki no. I guess she's one of the judges, in the Supreme Court. And he was answering a
Yeah,
question or a
yeah,
request from
yeah,
Njoki, who was stating that, repeating what you said, who was stating that she was kind of like demanding that the executive, uh, confirm, or should I say, they need to guarantee that they're not going to have an overreach or interference into their their work. She wants the Supreme Court to be free from interference and overreach of the executive. And I listened to President Ruto
yeah,
very carefully coin, his response. And President Ruto said that, well, you see, the judiciary kind of like has, should I say, it can sort out a problem. If there was a problem of overreach by the executive into the judiciary, there is a process in place already for them to address that matter as judges, as the Supreme Court, as that third arm of government. But the question he asked is, what about if there's overreach by the judiciary into the executive? I just thought to myself, wow, he just literally flipped the question around for her. What about, he's asking, am I safe? What about us? What about us, the executive? Who's going to look into our
yeah.
needs and our concerns? Yeah. So anyway, go ahead and
Yeah.
respond. I think that's all I had to say.
Okay. That's the issue. Even during Gashagwa's impeachment trial, it's what they were calling the political question, and the courts had to rule on whether or not they had jurisdiction to hear the impeachment, because the argument from the respondents, that is the state side, was that the courts don't have jurisdiction because the impeachment process is a complete process and it's a political process, and there's no recourse to the courts. But from the interpretation of the Constitution, there is a window where the courts have jurisdiction when there's somebody, a petitioner who's complaining. But that complaint has to be solely and based on breach of the Constitution, that their constitutional rights have been breached, that the institutions who were supposed to be addressing the matter did not abide by the Constitution. They did not provide the space that the Constitution envisages. So it's not just any random request, it's not a second hearing. So this is the question, and it's what they always do. They always say, oh, this is a political issue, so the courts can't determine it. But that's wrong. The courts, by him saying that is a decision that the court makes, that it first of all says, yes, we have jurisdiction to hear this matter. There's some cases which the court will say, we don't have jurisdiction to hear this matter. If you remember, in the Gachagua case, they went to court early to try and stop the impeachment process, and they were told, no, this is a political process. You have to allow it to run its course. When they're finished, that's when you come to us. But you cannot come midway when they're still when the political process is ongoing. And in fact, Martha Karua said, not Martha Karua, Martha Kome said that today when she was speaking. She was saying the political system or mechanisms must run their course to the end for there now to be legitimate recourse to the courts. So by him twisting the question round, he was raising that political question, which is resolved once the court is seized of the matter and sees, yes, we can handle this. The Constitution allows us to do that. So that response is neither here nor there, because it's really a decision the court makes on the offset that, yes, we have jurisdiction to hear. The other way is that what Jockey was perhaps complaining about was the way the executive or parliament will try to interfere with the decision that the court is making. Once they are seized of the jurisdiction of that matter, they should be allowed to determine things based on the constitution, based on the law. But she was talking about interference with the phone calls and trying to suggest that maybe the decision could be one way or the other. So there are two different points. They're not exactly the same, uh, but the judiciary will not handle the matter if it is still up, if it's still it has not completed its political process. So the other issues you talked about was why voting is not electronic. Don't forget all these systems, the electronic filing and all that. They came into being and they really thrived during the uh, COVID season, because we could not go, the crowding and all that. So all systems went virtual. And they have said that way. Lawyers are now attending court from their offices. They don't have to go and sit. Actually, in terms of saving time, it's a great way, because you don't have to drive through the traffic and wait for hours. You can be working while you're waiting for your case to be heard. So things have gone virtual. The filing system is virtual. During the last election, during the challenge, the first time that after the Kibaki, the first Jubilee win of the election. After that election, remember, some of those questions were raised about what type of election is this? Is it still a paper election where people are ticking, writing? Is it manual or is it electronic? So they concluded that, in fact, our laws provide for manual. The voting is manual. Remember, you take your pen and you tick manually. There's no place for you to write and to type in anything. You go there, get a paper. You have to go to the polling station and you tick. I think it's only the people from the diaspora where they have a separate sort of system, but the people in Kenya have to go and physically and tick the people they want. What is electronic is the transmission of the results, but not the voting itself. We don't have a system that allows for us to vote electronically yet. We are not there yet. Is the voting free and fair? The judges make that decision, like they made the decision that this vote were free and fair, and then they declared, yes, this president and deputy president were rightly elected as president. There's certain standards that have to be met. And there's this big debate about where does the polling take place. For the presidential, it takes place at the constituency level. That's what the law says, and it takes place for all these other ones. Actually, I think I heard somebody saying that, but I don't agree with them. We vote at the polling station. We vote, and then they're collected from that polling station and taken to the constituency level. So our votes are all, voting takes place at the polling station. So basically, that issue, politicians will always try to throw some confusion. There's competition between the judiciary and the political arm, which is the executive or parliament. But like you said, we know who is interfering with what.
Without having to mention any names, we know exactly who's interfering. And it's not like they're denying it, yeah? By saying, like, okay, fine, but who then will protect us? Okay, we have our new guest in the studio and would like to introduce him. You guys, why aren't you coming into the comment section? I can see 2 of you watching us, 4 of you are watching us. You go in and out. Welcome to the comment section. It's going to get more interesting now, because the gentleman below is going to be telling us why our Africans should be paying attention to the US election. Many of you guys are going to be watching this after our live show, which is unfortunate because you would have participated and we would have taken up your views. But one way you can participate is by asking questions even then, and commenting. Remember to put a like, put a thumbs up on this video so that all these YouTube, Facebook, will promote the show. Yeah. So anyway, welcome all of you guys who are in the back. I know you're listening. Some of you are probably working, and if you are, we wish you a great day. And yeah, thank you for tuning in. So we have somebody who just changed his name right there, which is good. Zapayero. We saw your other name, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah.
Karibu sana. Yeah, welcome to the
Oh,
African Queen. No,
asante.
you're not actually a guest on the show. You're not stranger to this show. You've been
Yeah.
on here before.
Asante.
Yes, and it's good to see you there. Yeah, it's good to see you without your glasses so we can see you properly and take a proper studio photo. So basically, Susan is a lawyer and I am an evaluator, and you are an analyst, a political analyst. I know that very well. And you are here to tell us about the US election. Can you introduce yourself a little bit, maybe to the Queen More Live group? We have three or four people watching, and probably some in the background. And we'll be also watching later and tuning in later once I post it. Yeah. So introduce yourself and tell us what you're going to be discussing here for us.
So, well, I am Zapayuro Swale. I'm from the Ivory Coast. Well, I'm sorry I had to change my name because actually it's that's a given name, Joseph. But if you notice, it was written in a Welsh way because I've practically become a Welshman now because I'm involved in Welsh activism, Welsh linguistic activism, and also politics. Yeah, but I'm originally from West Africa, so a country called Ivory Coast. Yeah, and I usually say that I'm African. I don't like the name Ivory Coast, but anyway, that's another topic. Yeah, and because a colonial it's a colonial and racist name to me. Yeah, that's my opinion. And then so I'm involved with the Welsh Language Society here, but I'm not here as the chairman of the Welsh Language Society. I'm just an African on this channel. I'm also involved in the prospective thinking for Wales independence, because Wales there's more and more a push for amongst the Welsh population to become independent. The same thing, you can also observe the same dynamic in Scotland. Yeah, so well, when I said I'm from the Ivory Coast, it's important to point out that the future of Ivory Coast has been and is still being shaped by the international geopolitics. So I think this resonates with what we want to discuss now. Is the elections in America, what goes on in Europe, what goes on in what people can call sometimes the global island. I mean, Eurasia impacts Africa, and it has always impacted Africa. So yeah, that's it. So I think it's important for Africans to watch what is going on in the US. Not that we're going to depend on it. We have to, I mean, think that we depend on the US. We are independent, but it will impact the environment in which we can thrive in terms of becoming independent and more politically successful, economically successful, and politically independent. Yes.
Okay,
Thank
if
you
I
very
may
much,
ask.
Zapayoro. Okay.
Sorry, I just wanted to ask. You said that what is the main reason why we should be, as Africans, be interested? Is it because each government has its own policy, and the policy they make, especially the foreign policy, is likely to affect the countries beyond its borders? And
Yes.
what is the... Mhm.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think maybe I can also add a question there. Like, historically, what has the US been doing? I mean, how has the US been engaged or influencing our lives, politically or socially in Africa, in the past? And maybe give us a little bit of a background so that the rest of us, many of us really have no idea. So I think you can start at the beginning. I think that's what Susan also asking, I think.
Yeah, what is obvious usually is the cultural the cultural life of Africans and lifestyle, what we consume, the food we eat, and the music we listen to. I know many Africans like to eat McDonald's. Many Africans like what's called that, Mike Jackson, or we watch Hollywood, which is very key. Hollywood that shapes our perception of the world, and these are the tools of power, America has had and has been using since World War One. So depending on that, we take a direction or not, and we decide of what kind of policies we apply. And sometimes it is through coercion. We are being coerced into implementing some plans or policies that most of the time are kind of they affect our lives negatively, in a negative way. We talk about, you remember the structural adjustment plans, which were imposed by Bretton Woods institutions like the World Bank, or these are institutions created by and conceived by America, definitely. Okay, but beyond that, we in geopolitics, I think when we talk about geopolitics, we have to talk about the military aspect of things, the interference of America. And it has happened through, of course, the American army itself. That was back in the days of Vietnam. Okay, then we have seen one time again, more recently in Iraq. But after that, America started using mercenaries a lot. You've seen them in Afghanistan. And many people also suspect that America used directly or indirectly groups which are labeled terrorist groups. But it's a strange thing, but eventually what they do ends up always being in line with the goals of American politics. American politics, for foreign policies, can be. I mean, it shows like it has experienced two phases, two different orientations. The first one was what we could call isolation. Isolationism for a period of time before World War One, and then later it became interventionism. Yeah, American interventionism. Sorry, sorry the term. So you understand? Yeah, sometimes okay. I tend to use those words in French, and then So America as was stayed away from the affairs of the world for a long period of time. Their policy could have been called back in the days a longitudinal approach. I mean, it's focusing on America itself, on Canada and Latin America. But at some point, when war started in Europe, and America was worried that a European power could emerge and dominate Europe, and at the same time, Japan was dominating Asia. So America could have found themselves being sandwiched between Europe, the European power, and Japan. So that's where they had to react, to take a decision and get involved in the war. And they did it the best way for them because they took advantage. They sold their weapons. They made the best out of it, and they started becoming the first power in the world. And then the Second World War, it was then way better, where they became the only superpower. So America's influence shapes the whole world. Africa is influenced by Europe, but Europe itself is influenced by America. Yeah, so I can just summarize it like that, but then we can go into more specific questions if you want.
Okay. So looking at the two candidates that we have now, which of the two would you say has a stronger foreign policy that is favorable to Africa?
So, okay, thinking back of what I said, the two phases of American policies, we still have those two tendencies in America. You have isolationism and interventionism. The Democrats are better. They are more effective, more efficient at America's aggressive foreign policies, and you have seen that during the term of Obama. They are way better because what people don't realize is that Obama still enjoys that image of a peaceful leader, American leader, but he's the one during Obama's term. There was America really started or got into a warmongering foreign policy. We had Syria, we had Libya, we had Ivory Coast, my country. And in comparison to Donald Trump, who tends to isolate himself, isolate America, threatening NATO countries to let them down if they don't contribute, never started any war around the world. He even went to sit down with the leader of North Korea and found a compromise with him, arrived at a compromise with him. So America is America. There's no real big difference, but we can say that we can already anticipate that if the Democrats win the elections, America is still going to be aggressive, very aggressive, just like that war that started in Ukraine. So if Donald Trump wins the elections, America is going to be, of course, less aggressive because they're going to focus on America first. Yeah. So that's what it shows. Yeah.
Some of the issues that we're seeing that could be of concern to us. Sorry, Maureen, I have so many questions.
Please ask all the questions
Queen,
you can. Please do. No, I'm happy you're asking, Susan. Please,
Yeah. So some of the questions that we've seen is that that may be a challenge is though, say, the Democrats may have more favorable policies towards Africa, their social policies are of some concern, to the rest of the world. Maybe what we view as very extreme or wokeism, which is whenever you watch videos and you can't even understand where the social issues are. For instance, I know this is a controversial issue, but when you have like transgenders playing in women's sports and stuff like that, and they seem to support very extreme views and stuff like that. Is that something that could cause them not to win the election? even in America, because we've seen some pushback from the Americans on that. There's quite a lot of pushback. So what do you think about that?
Oh yeah, okay. Within America, I think yes. I think it is not accepted everywhere. That's part of the globalist agenda. Wokeism, transgenders, and pushing for more rights. For sexual orientations. Okay, they are not accepted, by the generality of the people. It is a top-down globalist agenda, and they need to push for it. They make a lot of efforts, so it's not really. They are not really successful at doing it. Everywhere you can see that not only around the world, in the rest of the world, but even in Europe, it's becoming more and more difficult, to accept such things. So what the strength the Democrats have had, it is one of the strengths, is that they had left wing, generally the left wing, which of course includes the pressure groups, who are fighting for gay policies, LGBTQ, but also the Black community. This is the black community and color people community. So the BAME community in general. So, but nowadays people's eyes are opening up, and people are realizing that the Democrats have manipulated the question of color for a long time, and people are getting over it now, and they are focusing. They're asking real questions, behind those superficial, aspect of the thing. So I'm not sure that this will work for them this time. Usually, American presidents use an enemy to create fear in the population, and like they do in Europe as well, to create fear, and then people tend to vote for them because they think it would be the only person who can protect them against that enemy is that person. So Bush, for example, used the question of terrorist as something that could have, for which it could have helped America, really. And the same way, also, Donald Trump is also using immigration, So there's no big difference between between both sides. But regarding Africa, the impact would be quite different, and it will trigger more consequences.
Okay, I guess I can get a question in now or a comment. Yeah, so you talk about you said that the Democrats are much more effective compared to the Republicans. And I guess you're talking about in terms of implementing their policies around globalist agenda around the world. And the question in America right now, we are talking about there are two sides. There's a side that wants free speech and freedoms, freedom of thought, freedom of speech. They want to be able to carry their guns. They want to be able to self-protect. They don't want illegal immigration. That's the majority of Americans anyway, generally. But on the other side, there are some people who feel very strongly about certain things, such as the issue to do with gender, things to do with abortion. Abortion has come up many, many times, and they're writing on that. But when you talk about, when you talk about the negative publicity around, the candidates, you see a lot more negative publicity is shared globally against one candidate over another. So, for example, in the case of Trump, you'll be hearing a lot of stories about, for example, the doctors are saying that he's got a mental health issue, and many doctors are coming around that issue, that he's got a mental health issue. You'll also see many reports about him being swarmed by a whole bunch of flies every time that he goes, to speak. He's being told that he's incontinent. He's being told so many negative things, but it's very rare. The only things that I hear negative about Kamala Harris is that she's manipulating the color bar, the black agenda, and she's
Yeah.
riding on blacks, and the pain of the black people. She's manipulating blacks. I mean, that's the only thing I've heard about her, but you actually already see a great bias in terms of the way that the media is reporting on the elections, to the point where it causes a sense of mistrust with the public. Like, for example, they were talking about like CNN. I saw a report where they said CNN, you would expect that within the past, I think 5 days, they had something like about, three times a day, they would, talk about the Democratic, they were trying to promote the Democrats and things like that. But they were being asked about how many people do they think are actually watching. So the influence of the media is not as high as it used to be, because apparently they counted less than 100,000 views of their 3-day or 5-day segment, or on the election, as opposed to social media. That means that the would-be voters, the would-be young voters, are actually being influenced right now by social media more than they're being influenced by the general mainstream media. That means what you and I say has a great influence on what people do with their vote tomorrow. Yeah. And this is the reason why I feel that, this is an opportunity for us as Africans to educate each other about the American influence. I believe this morning we had a discussion with Zapayoro, where he was much more clear, or maybe I was able to document much more clearly what he's trying to say now, because I kind of like caught him a little off guard. But, he was talking about the fact that America has two historical trends regarding international politics. The first trend is isolationism, and the second trend is interference. Okay, so the isolationism was where America was focusing more on America and on dominating Latin America. Okay, so that's what he calls the longitudinal approach. And I believe that also includes Canada, because at the moment you will see that Canada is also, many Canadians are very, very concerned about the American elections. I've been listening to Canadians, even on TikTok, say that they have never been more vested in an election more than this. And what Zapayero was telling me earlier today was that the US had behaved before as conquerors, because of the history of slavery. Okay. They didn't really feel that they had the moral legitimacy to interfere in the affairs of the world. So that's the reason why they were more isolationist, and what I would call actually nationalist. And actually, when we talk about this isolationist, is because Zapayero speaks French more than English, I think. That's his first mother tongue. But that's what I would call insular. That first is the isolated insular approach, okay, of America. Then the second one is the interference approach, where Zapayero mentioned that in the affairs of the world, I mean, America decides to to interfere in the affairs of the world and the emission of civilization. And that started in the World War I and II, where America saw the threat, by being sandwiched between two potential powers coming out of the European Union and Japan. Okay, so America decided that that was a big threat enough, to actually decide to start becoming a country that interferes, and also that would then benefit from the weapons manufacturing and sales. And actually, if you look at the budget of the US, if I might add, you will see that the US spends like over half of its budget on military. In fact, the way it is organized, it looks like Western. When I was in the UK, I had a chance to look at the different budgets of the different countries, like the budget of America, the budget of UK, for example, the budget of China. You'll see, if you look at their budget and where their spending is, that's where you can see the priorities of each of these countries. So, for example, you'll see in America, majority of the budget goes to military spending, at least half. At least half the budget of America goes to military spending. Okay, that is arms, training, personnel, I guess, IT equipment, soft and hard measures, right? Then, if you look in the UK, the majority of the budget actually goes to social services. Yeah. That is, providing housing, housing and food and, all that to its population, and money and benefits and healthcare. That is where it prioritizes its spending. And in fact, all of them, by the way, are debtor nations, including the US. Everybody's in debt. If you look at China, the majority of the budget of China actually goes to education, believe it or not, education, yeah, and business. Yeah, that's where they prioritize education, business. I don't know whether that has changed now, but I was really surprised to see, like, for example, the education budget in the UK was very low compared to China. I don't know about the budget in terms of Japan, but when you look at the budgets of all the world, you actually see where they concentrate their efforts, where their focus is. So you see, America is the policeman of the world, so he has to be well equipped. And so for us as Africans, as Kenyans, we have to be wary of the idea of having a government in place in the US that is looking outward rather than inward. For us in Africa and the rest of the world, it would be more beneficial for us if the country had a leader that was not actually focusing on interference in our politics. Yeah. And we would have a country that is focusing specifically on creating jobs in America, keeping America borders safe. As you saw when Donald Trump was in power, that is a time that many jobs left China and were brought back to South America. He brought the jobs back away from China and into South America and the US. And he created the gig economy. Actually, under Trump, that is where the gig economy thrived. This is where, people like, people who work at home thrived. People, this was during the pandemic period, you remember? This is when the gig economy thrived. But you see, with the gig economy also comes these contracts that are not, they're not permanent contracts. Yeah, so that means that people became more work insecure. So although more jobs were created, the quality of the jobs created was not better than, for example, Obama's time. So if you see when Obama was empowered with the liberals in place, you'll see that the jobs that were created by not the liberals, the Democrats. No, did I say Democrats? I'm confusing the two. The Trump is the Republican and and Obama is the Democrat, right? So with the Democrats,
yeah.
Obama actually created real jobs that were good, long contract jobs. Some of us were beneficiaries. Some of us in Africa were beneficiaries if we had our children in America, because he also introduced FAFSA, which were loans to students. All students were encouraged to go back to school, and they got loans, and the government paid like half, and the children were told, the students had to pay the rest of their loans when they graduated. So everybody could go back to university. Right now, if you see with the gig, so what happened is that when they were comparing, all presidents of America actually gather their support from the voters based on the jobs that they can create for their population. Job creation is top of the agenda. As opposed to when you look at Africa, it's actually sending workers outside of the country, sending our workers, our youth, our energy out, to go and work in those countries. For them, they are interested in creating jobs, okay, in supporting manufacturing, in supporting industry, in supporting, businesses in their own country. So job creation is big. So when you look at the types of jobs that both Trump and Obama created, they were about equal, except for the type of job that was created. Mostly, like I said, for Trump, it was the gig economy that thrived. And for Obama, it was the real, proper jobs, with proper contracts. Either way, also, I think Obama came out on top. The Democrats came up on top at that particular time. But on the other hand, security for the rest of the world under the Democratic or Republican rule is influenced by who is in power. So I'll allow Zepayor to correct me wherever I went wrong in there, because I had a little bit of my own research and I may have, overstated my boundaries. But Please confirm if I'm correct or wrong there, Zapayoro.
Well, I think, yeah, you brought to light a lot of information, a lot of valuable information about America's local politics. Yeah, this is very important too. But going back to foreign policies, because that's where now that's really where we should either fear, I mean, become worried, or we should be concerned about what is going on in America. The Democrats have displayed much more aggression, in terms of foreign policies. So that's why many African analysts think that Trump into power will give us a break, a break from that America, that threat from America. Yeah, but everything is possible in this world, what is it going to trigger? Because it is because America is at war with Russia that we see Russia coming to support African countries. We all remember back in the days of Gaddafi in Libya, Russia had decided to be pro-West, to be pro-America. And Russia, I don't know if I can put it this way, but it is Russia and China who let Gaddafi down, will let him down, because they decided not to oppose, not to veto the decision of NATO to invade Libya. It was Russia's decision. But of course, it was not Putin. It was Dmitry Medvedev who was in power at the time, but it was Russia's decision. So now it is Russia's decision now to decide to oppose American and Western agenda in Africa. So Russia is just looking for its own interests. So if we have an American president who's pro-isolation, or who's like we said, insular, is Russia still going to support, carry on with that policy to support African countries or not? Well, everybody have their own goals. Russia has its goal, Africans have their goal. What's important for us is to become independent. Yeah. And that's what we really lack in Africa, is independence. We have resources, we have youth, now we're talking about the African region, we're talking about now 1.5 billion people, inhabitant, and most of them are young. We have 63% of the arable land that have not yet been exploited. We have at least 30% of mineral resources. We have so much resources, but we just need to make the right decisions, put the right policies in place. But we need independence and sovereignty, which we don't have. I think we can see that in Francophone countries, but luckily you have countries like Burkina Faso and Niger and Mali that are now free. I mean, they are becoming free from France's grip and the Western influence, but it's not every country. And worst thing is that even in the English-speaking world, I can see America's interference. Like you are in Kenya, for example. I heard about America's interference or in the elections. And once they interfere, the president loses credibility, and they lose the power, lose legitimacy. And if you don't have legitimacy, it weakens the policies, it weakens your ambition for the country. Because the same powers will come again and say, okay, you owe us your position, you owe us your power, so you have to be in line, when you implement your policy, be in line with our interests. Otherwise, we're going to let you down, and your people will not support you. So this is because it becomes some kind of blackmailing of those African presidents, putting the pressure, keeping the pressure on them. And whenever there's any trouble or any riot, any rallies where people die, you will see ICC coming and meddling into that and say, okay, we are going to start prosecution against you if you don't listen to us, another tool of pressure. So you have the tool of pressure of ICC, the tool of pressure of the World Bank, IMF, and so many institutions, which are at the disposal of America to exert its pressure on African presidents. So it's important for Africa to look at what is going on in America if we want to understand the geopolitical game.
Can you predict who's going to win tomorrow?
Well, I think normally Donald Trump should win, but if I can tell you today, it's quite. It will be definitely close and it's quite tight. But the problem nowadays with America is that we also, the elections in America are not 100% safe or fair. There is manipulation there too. Yeah, so it's difficult to predict. Very difficult.
Maureen also asked about free and fair elections here in Kenya. I forgot to mention the way the winning candidates win. It's now sort of like graduated. There are various stages they have to meet. It's just not on a simple majority. So it was the Constitution created it that way so that at least there's wider support of the presidential candidate, so that it's not just one region that has been elected. So, for instance, at least half of the counties, the presidential candidate who wins has to get at least 23%. Is it 20? Is it 25% in each of those counties? So because we have 47 counties, in 23 counties, he has to get at least 25% vote. So and we have 47. So it's so that it's spread regionally. Before, when it was just on a simple majority, you could have all the voting in one region and a whole other place there are no votes at all. So what they've done now in Kenya, so as to create some sort of balance and to get this sense of more support from region, from the nation, they have put certain criteria, and then the president has to get 50 plus 1 votes, 50% plus 1. So, for instance, if an election is run here and the presidential candidate does not get 25% in 23 counties, then they would have to now have a runoff against the top 2. So that's how it was supposed to work, and that's why they say our constitution is very transformational. It's really about how it's being implemented and by who, and whether the system is being corrupted. The way Zapayoro is saying that even in the US, you can't be so sure that there's going to be no manipulation of the results. Last time we had lots of stories about how some people won. I mean, I don't know whether there were rumors, but here too, there's a thing about kifarangas, chicks in the, what was it? Chicks in the server.
Yeah.
Do you remember that story?
Yeah.
Do you remember the chicks in the server?
Yeah. Yeah, but there's
You're
something I'd like to
muted.
point out. Oh, sorry, about policy, about.
I'm always muted. This is crazy. Sorry.
About democracy. Back in the Greek city, the citizens, of course, when we talk about the citizens, it wasn't everybody in the first place. I don't know. The term democracy itself needs to be questioned and revisited. Because it's only men and not, some people were slaves, they were not voting, women could not vote. Okay. But at least people were gathering to vote, to vote for policies. Of course, there were people elected, but those people were there to make sure that to implement those policies and to make sure that they were implemented. But people will gather to vote vote laws, to devise laws together and policies. But nowadays, what happens now with the new system that we got from Western countries is that you elect somebody, and for 5 years they are free to do, or you elect a bunch of people, and for 5 years they are free to do what they want. They can even vote against the interests of the people, and they are fine. You can't do anything for 5 years. And if they manage to corrupt the system because they have so much power, they will stay for 10 years, and the situation will even get worse, you see. So, well, I think democracy, that model of democracy, should be questioned. And we did as Africans, we did have our own systems, of choosing our leaders and running our public affairs. And it's important for us to remember that, and try to look for ideas, from within our own culture, within our own system. Because I live in Europe, and I can tell you, I believe less and less in the democracy, in the democracy, the way it was presented to us. What's going on around Europe, and now even in America, where we are not even sure about that the elections are free and fair. Well, so just a question I'd like to put on the term democracy.
Yeah, I have a question. I came across, I was watching something, and it was a political show, and this is one of the sayings that came up. Politics is defeat chasing after victory.
Mhm.
That was an answer that one politician gave another to explain what had happened. He said, politics is defeat chasing after victory.
After victory, yes. Yeah. And that's interesting.
A comment. Let me take a comment from our one person who is in the comment section. She cannot join us right now. Her name is Wairimo. And Wairimo, you're the greatest. Thank you so much for being on here. And she disagrees vehemently with all our positions. Okay, I hope Susan is okay. You haven't fallen off the planet, have you, Susan?
My phone it tripped. Yeah.
I hate to laugh at you, but it was really funny to say that. Okay, so basically what Warimo is saying, that for someone in finance who has been voting here since Al Gore ran 2000, I respectfully have a varying lived perspective. Unfortunately, I can't join the conversation. But she goes on to say, Susan, vote manipulation here is propaganda. Vote suppression is real, but if one manages to vote, no one can manipulate. Okay? We can track our votes here. Each ballot has a serial number at the top. So I asked her, I said, Wairimo, what about the Trump? When Trump came to power, if you guys remember, they were blaming it on the Russians, manipulating the elections. You remember that, guys? So she's responding and she's saying that Russia issue was vote suppression. Even today, Russia is using social media for misinformation. So what do you have to say to that? That Wairimo believes that that the votes in America are completely tight, They are waterproof, literally, Allow me to take this phone call. I have a phone call to take, so I'll remove my face from here, but I'm here.
Yes, I think. Go.
Oh, well. I'm sorry. I have to smile at it because I've been involved in politics myself in the Ivory Coast, and I think that's the easiest thing, to rigging elections is not difficult. What I can say, based on my own personal experience, is that when the difference is too big, for example, if you and I are running, and I'm winning by 70%, and you only have like 30%. Yeah, that one is difficult to rig. But once it's a bit close, You know, it happens. It happens in so many countries, so many times. Like now in Ivory Coast, there's a Frenchman who was um, one of the representative of the French government. I mean, it's like the whole French government is admitting now today that they rigged the elections in Ivory Coast to make one person win over the other. The same France had admitted that they had rigged the election. They had rigged the election to make Bongo win the elections. It's something very common, you know, because it is human beings who control the machines and everything. There are ways, you know, to do that. So many ways to do that. Now, when talking about Russian interference, I'm sorry, but the Congress, the American Congress, has completely admitted that Russia did not interfere anyhow in the election. They finally admitted it, but it was just propaganda, like she said, propaganda of Democrats saying that Donald Trump had won because of Russia's interference. They have admitted after running the investigation, you know. So, well, Russia is fighting the battle of information or disinformation. The same way the Democrats are also fighting using the mainstream media to depict Donald Trump as the devil every single day. Yeah, I know. I think that's part of the game. Yeah, but elections can be rigged. Election can absolutely be rigged. Yeah, many ways, in so many ways. Yeah.
I think it's true. I mean, in Kenya, there was the issue of the algorithm and the challenge to it. It didn't succeed, but you know that politics is about perception. It's not really about truth. And
No.
I think every election cycle, a nation tries very hard to make sure that they block any possibilities of interference with the will of the people. You know,
Yeah.
and even when they do the election petitions, they say, well, what they say, the general impression of the outcome of the results is that did the people want so and so to be the president, and that's what happened. So I think with the US, maybe their systems are better than you'd find in Africa. But I agree with Zapayor that I don't think there's any system that's infallible. If somebody wants to rig, they will find a way to do it. And
Yeah.
surprise. Remember, one of the things that they did was there were identical papers with numbers. You remember there was something like that in Kenya. I remember, and there people I think are smart enough to find ways around if they want to cheat. So for me, elections, I'd never say that they're completely no cheating. They can try to block them, but I don't think that you can say that there was no
Es-
cheating at some point.
especially in Africa, because once the results have been given, everybody tends to accept them. And if the Supreme Court validates the results without deep investigation, it's accepted. You know, it's difficult to turn back. Uh, Sometimes, okay, she also admitted that, okay, there are ways of manipulating. For example, if I know in a region, if I know that in a region is favorable to my opponent, I can move the numbers around so that people will not be able to vote. They will need to make effort traveling. For example, if I send your number, I put you in a different polling station far, like 200 kilometers. You're not going. There's a high chance that you're not going to vote. There are people who vote multiple votes, because there are profiles that have been created on the electoral list for people to vote many times. There's also intimidation. There's also giving money to people so that they influence people they can influence. You know, yeah, there are so many ways, and there's also appearance on the media. And the media in Guinea, for example, Guinea Conakry, there's a French company called Avast, and they know that not every candidate has the means to reach out to every constituency, every region. But Avast, they have those powerful they have that very powerful system that can allow a candidate who pays them to reach out, and then that's how the Guinean president was elected. He won the election with the support of Avast. In Benin, it also happened. Those who have the money will reach out, and they get the vote. So there are so many ways you can go around. Fair elections. Yeah, so many ways.
So how did they reach out with that Avast? Was it a technology? Were they voting online or by mobile phone or what?
No, it's the technology. During the campaign, if you don't see my face, for example, I'm running with Susan is my opponent. If she doesn't see, in a part of Kenya, people don't see my face. If they don't see me physically, if I'm not present there, I lack presence because I don't have the means to go there, and my opponent has the technology to do that. So they'll be able to see him, to see them. Yeah, and then they can, after they have been influenced, they vote accordingly.
So you're saying which technology?
Yeah, it's
like what? Mobile phone or just pictures or TV or radio? What do you mean?
Oh yeah. All those media in general, radio, local radios, pictures, mobile phones. Yeah, they are experts, and they know how to do it. But it has been admitted that Alpha Conde won the election because he had Avast on his side, and he paid them a lot of money after that, and knew he was going to win because he has Avast. Yeah.
This reminds me of our own situation, Susan, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, because we always invite foreigners, foreign agents. You'll always hear some foreign country is involved, in our elections, and you're wondering why. What for?
Yeah.
If they're going to be free and fair, why are they not completely indigenously Kenyan? Yeah. Why do we need all these foreign people in here, in these countries? Why do we need them? I guess, like you're saying, is because of the technology that they're using. But basically, let me also pick up, Wairimu is the fourth person who is actually on the chat. She's saying, definitely the votes are not watertight in America. Voting is not centralized. Each state manages their voting. Some states will have fewer polling stations to make it harder for some people to vote. Okay, that happened actually for us in the last voting cycle. Yeah. And that's why you see long lines in some of the southern states. Okay, very interesting. So basically what she's saying, she's agreeing with us that it's not watertight. But on the other hand, I don't know. I think she just disagrees in terms of what we say, that we think that maybe that you think perhaps that Trump would be probably winning, this election. And maybe she disagrees with that. And I would say having relatives in the U.S. who are completely anti-Trump, they will be coming after your neck for saying such things, or even suggesting that Trump could possibly win the election. Because if you remember, I know
he
some of these
say his preference. He just said
no. It wasn't a preference.
I'm
but
saying
what he
it
thinks
wasn't
in
his
terms
preference.
of
It's
the
just his
analysis.
observation.
Yeah. Because we had that discussion earlier that he observed that Trump seems to be winning. But the question is, but she's disagreeing with that, right? And there are many people who disagree with that, because there's also this thing called the Electoral College in America, and we saw, how it works.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, a lot of people would be very fearful of a Trump presidency in America, and I would understand why, because I lived in the U.S. for almost 10 years, so I get it. I understand that with the way he managed himself the last time. Okay, you remember there was the issue of George Floyd. There was a very heightened racism and polarization of people by color with the Trump presidency. There was a lot of that.
I have a question.
Internally.
When was George Floyd
Just a sec.
murdered?
It was during the Trump presidency, if you just look. But if you'd mute your mic, I'll mute you otherwise.
Okay.
So Yeah, it
Yes.
was during the Trump presidency. But basically, George Floyd was, and then there was a lot of shooting by police of black people. You know, there was that anti-Semitism against blacks in America during the Trump presidency. Now, the question is, do we blame President Trump, or do we blame his opponents? Or do we blame, just the fact that those people who felt isolated are the mostly conservative lot? Because basically, it's the coal miners, it's people who have lower level education, who may have carried over some sort of views against people of color, in the country, and who can create an environment that can be very, very polarized within America. So, what's very strange and very interesting is to see that while the Trump presidency favored international geopolitics, whereas countries outside America benefited from a Trump presidency by being allowed to nationalize, to have a higher level of what's that word that you call it? Like we feel that we're more independent. We felt more independent under the Trump presidency, for example, as opposed to the Obama presidency. There was less interference. Countries have greater sovereignty outside of America with the Trump presidency. But within America, it's the exact opposite that's happening. The people felt, the way I saw the people in America, especially blacks felt very fearful. Minorities felt fearful because people became polarized within. It's the same thing, I think, that has also happened with the Labour Party in the UK, where you saw the attack on blacks when Keir Starmer came to power in the UK. Yeah, isn't it?
Mhm.
Zabayoro, you being in the UK, you saw for the first time open, and even Susan has been to school in the UK. So for the very first time, we saw targeting by race after the Labour Party came into power, which is kind of strange. Almost, you know,
Well,
although I guess no, in the UK, I guess the Conservatives have been in power, and in this case, it's kind of the Liberals who are the Labour Party, I believe. Or what do you think, Susan? Am I wrong on all of this?
No, in the UK, there's Conservative, Liberal, and Labour. So the Labour are the left, Liberals are in the middle, and Conservative are right. But I think something that has influenced the politics the world over is the wokeism issue that has made now the people who are really fighting back and pushing back for rights are not the Labour or Democrats. It's now the Conservatives and the Republicans who are pushing back because they feel things have moved too way off what they consider to be normal or acceptable. You know, you when you watch these videos and you can see as you feel a sense of confusion because a question which you should have been able to answer in quite a straightforward way, now you can't because of all this political correctness thing. And you can't remember the lady, the judge who was asked what, about women, what is a woman, what's the definition of a woman, and she avoided the answer. The black judge to the Supreme Court in the US, and she avoided the answer because she knew it was a trap. It was a trap. If she answered it one way, should have got into problems. If she answered it the other way, should have got into problems. So it was not a win-win situation for her at all. Yeah, and I think it's so sad that some of these social things, the world is becoming so interesting that it's not the left which is fighting for normalcy, it's the right now which is trying to push things back. And I think it's everywhere. I mean, from the videos I see, it's everywhere. Like look at the Olympics. Might be drifting a bit off the subject, but just to demonstrate how things have changed. The Olympics, there was this question about two individuals who were fighting in the women's boxing and how the world reacted to that. How people reacted to it. And the competitors said that, certainly one of them said she's never been hit so hard in her life, that she couldn't She has never
Yeah,
been hit so hard.
the
And
Algerian.
those two, in, yeah, by the Algerian. And
Yeah,
you see how the world was divided. The social media was very, very, very hot and very, very, and of course, if some people are saying, no, you're supposed to say this, and nobody was allowed to talk about the chromosome issue, you know, nobody was
yeah,
allowed to say that. And they won. And they won. But even, so, it, there are scientists who are now studying that and saying, actually, at least the videos I saw, is these are males.
yeah.
But because they were raised as females, they are competing as females, but they are males. They are too strong. So the
Well,
government,
uh, well, it's sometimes the dividing line is blur, and this is nature.
yeah,
Nature does that, we can say. But the fact that it's difficult to have the debate because there's some kind of censorship, culture of censorship that has been created, that was created by the mainstream dominant media, especially in the West. And yeah, that have they came up with a narrative, about our lives, about what is going on in the world, and that cannot be questioned. That's a serious problem we have nowadays. And throughout history, I think Africans should remember, if you, for example, if you take that divide between the left and the right wing and left wing, it's always been some kind of a scam, in general. Because if we remember, in Africa, the person who came up with the colonial project is a left wing guy. His name is Jules Ferry, pretending that he was going to civilize Africans, like civilize. It was like being a humanist, but we knew what the plan was. So that left and right is something, well, is something you don't have to believe. I mean, some people still believe in them, naive, that's a naive way of observing, analyzing politics. Nowadays, there's a dominant globalist agenda, and the globalists have the money, so they fund any side. You can be on the right wing or left wing. You can, if
yeah,
once you're funded, yeah, you pay allegiance.
yeah,
In France, for example, somebody can be denied citizenship, and not denied really. They can take away your citizenship.
yeah,
You can lose your citizenship nowadays, and it's a left-wing government who came up with that measure, not a right-wing government. Yeah, yeah,
yeah, yeah, I agree with you that left, right, maybe those are very old terminologies, or it doesn't really tell you which side they're leaning on an issue. Yeah,
austerity.
but
Austerity is the
yes,
rule. Everybody, austerity is the rule
yeah,
now. Whether it's left, whether it's right.
yeah,
Well,
yeah. I think they've crossed. I mean, some things are happening in this world that are just affecting the politics, and that's why I thought to raise it. So I think Maureen had said another subject that she wants us to talk about is the violence that we're seeing in Kenya. I don't know whether you've been following that. Maybe you can even talk about it. In the where you are, has there been a lot of attacks on women, femicide?
okay. Well, yes. Of course, in okay. I hear a lot of things about Ivory Coast, and of course about Nigeria too.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think it's a problem of criminality, basically, and women and children are vulnerable. That's the way I see it.
yeah,
When there's poverty, when the economy is bad, there's more poverty, and then criminality also becomes worse. And when it becomes
yeah,
worse, of course, the more vulnerable categories of the population are going to, yeah, be victimized. Are going to become victims. Yeah, I think yeah, that's the way I explain it to myself, is
Yeah,
criminality. Mhm.
we've had a lot of cases and causing quite a bit of concern. Almost every day we're hearing about a young woman found in the bushes, or her body. The latest one was dismembered body found at the cemetery, and it's not things that we used to see before, but we've seen more and more of it recently. So there's a lot of
Ritual,
concern in this country about violence
ritual.
against women, and as we differentiate them, I think the category of femicide is it could be, the category of femicide is violence meted by males on women because they are women. And I have a question to ask on this, because the head of the police said that they had said there are 97 cases of somebody. The news reported to a femicide. Then this guy says that no, they are not all femicide cases. Some of them are purely criminal cases. So in my mind, I was wondering, when you're saying, what does he mean by that? And I'll put it to you. If he says, what does he mean by that? That they are purely criminal cases. The victims are women, but the cases are purely criminal cases. So to him, those are not femicide cases. So if for instance, a woman gets mugged and mugged and beaten up and eventually unalived, is that a case of femicide?
Yeah.
If it's a man who's mugging.
Yeah, by nature, it's a femicide. It's a femicide because a woman was being killed. But then the motive behind, the death, the killing of the woman, is it killing because she's a woman, or because that person is a criminal and he has just it just happened to find a vulnerable person, to be in front of a vulnerable person. So, well, I don't know, but figures need to be like compared, and we need to triangulate. For example, how many kids are killed? Are there kids who are victims of those ritual murders, or is it only specifically women? Are there not men also who are killed and found dismembered? I'm not sure about the figures, but definitely what I know is that if there's a criminality, women is like war. Women are vulnerable, very vulnerable. Women and children, are the most vulnerable.
Actually, it's a war crime. It's a war crime. Rape of women and girls is actually a war crime. It's a war crime.
Yeah, exactly, because it can be used as a weapon, like genocide, because that women are the ones who give birth. So
for example, let me give an example. One of the cases that is here in Kenya is a family of 3 ladies. There's the mother, and then there were 2 others. Is it a daughter and a niece? The niece is 12 years old. The daughter is 20 something, and then the mother. All 3 of them were unalived by the same person, and their bodies scattered. They were found in different places. So is that femicide? And I haven't gone on. The motive was that there was a second wife who wanted to just remove the first wife out of the picture. That was the motive. So the person she paid a male 1 million shillings. That's what I saw on the video. I can't verify apart from what I saw. To unalive the lady, and for some reason, maybe because the other 2 went to look for her, they were also unalived. So is that femicide?
Yeah, I think, well, the definition, if it takes into account the sociological aspect of the thing, we can give a different definition. But by nature, the fact of killing a woman is, yeah, I think if to a certain proportion, then it's a femicide. If we take the figures on the national level, the fact that women are killed, if it is a really serious proportion, then okay, it appears like femicide. But then purely criminal, purely femicide.
What do you think, Queen Mo?
Purely, well, difficult.
Yeah.
The line is blurred. The dividing line is blurred to me.
If I don't know whether you're asking
you
because you
Is
know
it
the
femicide?
answer. Do you know the answer?
Asking because of the definition of femicide, because it says violence meted on a woman by a male because she's a woman. But for me, all these categories, even the opportunistic attack of a lady and when she's walking home and then she's beaten up and unalived, to me that is femicide, because the target was somebody who could not fight back. He has targeted that lady because she's a lady to rob her and beat her up and possibly do other things as well, to her. So for me, I'm just trying to understand why that head of police said these are not all femicide cases. Some of them are purely criminal cases. That's what he said. That video where they was talking about 97 women in the past 3 months. You listen to it, Queen Mo. And I was a bit disturbed by that comment. He didn't explain it, and that's why I'm trying to engage us on it. Because what did he mean? Was he trying to?
Yeah, I think the idea of femicide is that it's, like you said, a war crime. It's like a war crime, especially under these circumstances. And with the numbers of women dying, 97 in 90 days is actually very alarming. And also the manner in which these women are dying and getting killed is also alarming, not just in the country, but globally. It becomes something that the ICC may be interested in, It might be interested to see whether there is a certain category of people inside a country that are being targeted, okay, for a specific reason. Because why is it that the pattern remains the exact same? They're being found in Airbnbs. The question people are asking is, are these women being killed elsewhere and then being dragged to Airbnbs, as bodies? Or are they being taken to Airbnbs to be killed there so that they can get a bad rap, bad name, bad image, that these women were loose, or that they were, prostitutes, or, had other, it could be just a woman on the street and she's picked up, abducted, taken to an Airbnb, murdered there, thrown off a balcony, or cut up into pieces and body parts burned, or her body is picked up and taken to the mortuary. So the thing is that femicide can be carried out by both men and women. Because what the motive is, according to the Wikipedia, the definition that I read the other day, femicide has, the term femicide is expanding and evolving. And so initially it was intimate partners only, but it could also be carried out by a woman against another woman, for the simple reason that she is a woman, for the hatred of women, the hatred of the woman. So because she's a woman, so for example, if this woman was a man, she probably wouldn't have been killed, because she was being killed because she's a woman. She's competition for that woman for the second wife, isn't she? Yeah. So if she was a man, she wouldn't have been killed. Yeah. If it was a
Yeah,
man, if
the
there was no
second one,
woman,
yeah,
she wouldn't have been killed. She was being killed because she is a woman, because she is a
yeah,
wife.
No,
Yeah.
yeah,
So because of the hatred of that woman, that is a femicide
yeah,
by definition. Yes.
yeah, but I
When the
think
yeah,
inspector general, the deputy inspector of general police says that this is not a femicide, I think it's got something to do with what does that mean with giving the bad image, protecting the image of the government, protecting the image of the government that they're not going after the women, that the women are safe. But the thing is, we women have a sixth sense that men don't have. Yeah, we have it. We have,
yeah,
in fact, we have seventh and eighth senses.
uh,
So we know we can smell danger from very, very far. We can know your motives and intentions just by looking at patterns. Okay? Because it's actually something that you're born with to protect your young child anyway. So the first person you protect is yourself, isn't it? So you know that it's a femicide. You know that there's an atmosphere where there's some sort of, in fact, I would even take it further to say, how many heads have they asked for? It's either ritualistic, it could be hatred for women. And also, if you look at the patterns in terms of the government and you look and see the composition of the government itself, with the two-thirds gender rule compared to Tanzania and Uganda, when you see the proportion of women in parliament, it tells you something about the culture of the executive. The culture of the executive is to exclude women, especially women who have something to contribute of any sense to the government or to, So, and apart from that, there's also talk, very negative talk about social media influencers by the executive. And not just by the executive, by the people in government, right? They fear them. Why? Because these are women who are on the loose, they're on the prowl. These are women who are not controlled or controllable. Yeah, they're in the social media where they are protected under the social media. They don't have to come into mainstream media, and they are influencing people's perceptions about the government or about the leaders and the executive, etc. So they have a lot of power. So by instilling fear, what it does is that it sends a message to all women that, listen, women, go and take your place. And your place is at the back of the bus and not in the front where the leaders are. So I think that a lot of these crimes are committed against women in this heinous way to send a message to the general female population in the country about we
yeah.
are in charge as the men, and you are second fiddle, and take your place in the back seat or find yourself in this position if you speak up.
Okay.
Yeah, that's how I
Zapayoro, you
feel.
wanted to say something?
That's my
Yeah,
feeling.
thank
Sorry,
you.
Zapayura, I
yeah,
didn't know. Once
I just had
You've been trying to interject.
I just had okay, a couple of questions. Yeah, because well, I saw well, Maureen was really like displaying,
Don't call me
deploying,
that. Don't call me
yeah,
that name. I have my
develop,
official name too. Others I'll call you
developing,
Joseph.
yeah, developing a
Yeah,
theory. Yeah, but well, yeah, it's interesting. That's a very interesting theory. But well, I can say that okay, I don't know if nowadays there's that divide, that competition between men in group and women in group. To that, I mean, it reaches that extent. I'm not sure. I think these are individuals who commit those crimes. If it's a woman, for example, like what you're just mentioning, is because she's competing with another woman for a man, over a man. I see in some cases, even within families, brothers will, and we can see crimes between brothers and sisters, but it doesn't always have to do with the gender. It is my interests. I want this, and you are in the way. You are in the way. Okay. Well, that's the way I understand it. But
yeah,
if now it becomes a culture, it becomes something cultural, because that's to me that's a real concern. If now the society becomes desensitized, to the fact that women are being killed. If women get killed like that, and it happens, every day, all the time, and the society becomes desensitized, then Yeah, it's a problem. It's a problem for that society, for the society.
Mm.
The same
And
way we said that, okay, in the world in general, black people being killed, sometimes we complain that black people being killed is so normal, is so acceptable, has become so acceptable. 1,000, 3,000, for example, now Congolese have been killed by millions, and the word is okay. But now you have Palestinian. I'm not trying to compare, uh,
yeah,
tragedies, but I can see the reaction, from everywhere in the world, after what Israel is doing in Palestine. But Congo, people forget about Congo, because, okay, people have gotten used to Africans dying, Africans being killed, Africans suffering. So if the society eventually accepts, the fact that women are killed this way, if they see that it's happening repeatedly, then it is the responsibility of the government
yeah.
that measures the situation to react, to do something about it,
Yes,
because
we're going to
yeah,
solutions now.
women
Let's
are
talk about the
vulnerable.
solution. Yeah.
Yeah, women are vulnerable. Not only are they
Yes.
vulnerable, but women, if we take the African perspective, women are the source of life. I mean, without women, there's no life. So it's a serious issue. It's a very serious issue.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yes. So the Law Society, I saw them taking uh, the police to task and telling them to investigate well. So I think one of the problems that we have is early detection, even, because like Maureen said earlier, one of the areas where we see this happening is in the intimate partner situation.
Yeah.
The early detection, the early signs that this is potentially a dangerous situation this person is
Yeah.
in. We could have had, maybe in those cases of those girls being flung out or whatever, the police were actually called. But because they were not trained well enough, or they didn't understand the situation well enough, that they let it go and didn't act at all. I mean, there's situations like that where the police actually are called, and instead of like separating the two, they'll be told something like, "Oh, this is my wife, or this is my girlfriend, or there's no problem," and they'll listen to the partner who's likely to be the aggressor and walk away without trying to stop and ask questions. I think there are many lessons as a country we can learn from the West, although they're still not there yet, because there are situations where they actually come, they're called to the home, and they leave the person, and in the dangerous situation, next thing they hear, somebody has disappeared, gone missing. In fact, that's what happens usually, is the person goes missing. So they're reported as a missing person, whereas they're actually no longer with us. So I think that's one of the things, early detection. We need to get our systems in this country are working, where the police are well trained to intervene in those situations. Also, to develop something they call
Sorry to
encouragement
interrupt, Susan,
control.
but what if the police are the aggressors? What if the police
Not,
are the aggressors?
That's a good
yeah, that's
question.
now that's the problem. Um, about who else to call and how to call. And maybe the hotlines, they need to be there for women to be aware of. And this training should be part of the training that children receive in school, so they know how to protect themselves. They're able to see, if I find myself in this situation, as you grow older and older and older, this is the phone the number you have on your phone, on speed dial, and even how to respond when you find yourself in a dangerous situation. That type of education, I think, is very, very crucial. The other thing is passing laws like, and it's worked in other countries, and they call it by different names, but coercive control laws. I've talked about this before, where those are this law captures the indicators that this person is escalating into a situation where you may not survive. And so women are made aware of it, and the police also let's say they are good police who are coming, are able to assess a situation accurately and separate the two before it goes wrong. And also the confidence in the police, that if, for instance, imagine that case of the lady who was made a victim by the second wife, is the one actually who paid somebody to do away with the first wife. What if there was less fear, that if she went and reported that she's afraid, because there must have been something that would have made her afraid or weary of this other person. Because usually those, from what I can tell from that story, it was actually a completely premeditated thing. So I think the police also, where do you report and you'll be heard? When you say, I'm going to report and I'll be heard and action will be taken to separate this person, to get an order where this person will be told to not come anywhere near me or my children,
Yeah.
If they come,
in this particular case, Susan, this second wife was in England with the husband.
She came.
So she came and did a surveillance in the country. She came.
Yeah.
She actually left the UK, came to Kenya, did the surveillance, found out about the first wife, because this is the first wife, right, over here, and then made an agreement with somebody who was known, sent money. Apparently, the story, according to what I heard from TikTok, is that this gentleman, this killer, was actually Ethiopian. He was not Somali. He was Ethiopian, and he had killed his wife in Ethiopia and came to Kenya, got fake documents, became a Kenyan citizen, was running a taxi. And that is how he ended up getting money transferred to Ethiopia, 1 million shillings. And then he is well known to the family, by the way. That means that she actually didn't pick any random person. She picked a taxi that is well known to the family. Yeah. And where the woman would actually trust this man to carry. And that's why the children were trusting him in the night to go with him, to go to their mom. Yeah. So they didn't know that he was a killer. But it points to so many leakages in our system that caused the death of these women, that I don't even think they would have anticipated that they were in any sort of danger. Because you see, the way we have taxi drivers who we trust and we normally use, and sometimes we say we're going to use them instead of just using any Uber driver. Yeah. In fact, those children would have been safer if they had just called any Uber driver out there. Yeah. Rather than going with somebody that they know. But this woman was working from outside the country. So actually, what should happen right now is that the UK security agents should get involved. This is an international case now. They should get involved and arrest this woman. Yeah. And have her tried in court together with her husband. Because like you said, this is a premeditated situation, but it's rare. Now, when you talk about phones but anyway, yes, we need solutions. And the first solution, I believe, should be the culture of the executive, the culture of the government in all arms, from the judiciary to the executive to the parliament. They should be, like you're saying, passing laws in parliament. At the same time, I think the judiciary itself should be acting fast on any single case. Also, the executive should be talking about this and ordering. Like I saw that Justice Martha Koome, the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, actually asked the police or the organs to the organs or the security organs to ensure the safety of women. But it's not happening because already people, young men or men, have been emboldened by what Joseph calls the normalization of the murders of women. Men in relationships have been emboldened to sort out their differences and quarrels with women with knives, with weapons, to end a woman's life for the purpose of ensuring that that woman is not going to be with another man. Jealousy, and that feeling of control and ownership of women. So the question is, a lot of women are asking themselves, why should I put myself in harm's way by even dating if I'm going to end up finding myself on, death's row by saying no, or even having a quarrel with my partner or something that might find me in this position. But anyway, we will talk about, I think, solutions in future. What do you think? I don't know. Yeah, I think we should kind of be winding up the show now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Otherwise, unless Zapatero has something very burning to say.
Yeah, well, yeah, no, I totally agree with you, with both of you. I think, yeah, it's we talk. You mentioned the word, Susan, you and Maureen. Both of you mentioned education and culture. I think, yeah, we'll discuss it another. We can discuss it another time. But everything is education. Is the way the society project itself in the future, and that's accordingly we make decisions accordingly. Yeah, but education is everything, because you cannot put I don't know how many policemen there will be for, if you, I don't know how many millions of women in Kenya, and how many policemen can watch over them, be watching over them. That would be okay. You can put the best a system that will kind of help a lot, but the culture, the community, the involvement, and even the mindset of the people. For example, in prison, what I noticed that in Morocco, in different countries, rapists are endangered in prison. It means that even prisoners have some kind of morals they have created, that if you are a rapist, yeah, you are not you don't deserve to live. So rapists are put in a different section because of that. Yeah. Well, anyway, it's a cultural thing. Yeah. So, well, regarding our top, the elections in America, what I would like Africans to do in general, it is to really follow the geopolitics. And geopolitics is about the history, because you can anticipate the behavior. The policies, the foreign policies of a government, or a state or a nation, based on, if you know the history of that nation very well. Yeah. And Africans nowadays cannot envisage running the politics, without taking into account what is happening around the world. This is just not possible. There will be influences, there will be threats coming from around the world. How to deal with powerful multinational companies like Bill Gates companies or whatever. All those institutions that were created by the U.S. rule, what they call the Pax Americana, after the Second World War. IMF, World Bank, all those things, ICC, even United Nations, and including African Union or ECOWAS. All those organizations are working hands in hands, and they are going into a certain direction. So you have to be aware of that. So I think it's a good thing that we discussed it today, and I encourage Africans to look at the geopolitics, understand Russia, how Russia behaves, has behaved throughout the history, how China behaves, how America behaves, why Israel is there in the Middle East, what's the role of Israel, and in all that game, that gimmick, where Africa can position itself, and where our country, specific countries, individual countries, can position themselves.
Wow.
You, Joseph.
Yeah, thank you, Joseph. Yeah. And you're calling him Joseph, but he's Zapayoro. And I'm Queen
Oh,
Mo.
yeah. She remember the name Joseph. Yeah.
Zapayoro.
Yeah.
That name is like very scary. It sounds like we have names like that one actually in our local languages to describe monsters, literally.
Oh,
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind being called Jaruma. Jaruma.
Jaruma. Yeah, I was telling
Jaruma,
him that
okay.
the name in the local language is Jaruma. There's even a
Yeah.
song. In fact, I'll sing a song one time about it, but in future. But anyway, thank you guys. Thank you so much for the chat. I hope that the Gen Zs who have and Gen As, especially Gen As, who have very limited attention span, just because of social media, many people have attention span. I was listening to an educator today complaining that many children don't want to study. They don't want to get tired because they have a very short attention span, like that tiny. They can only listen for 5 minutes or 10 minutes, and that's it. So when you tell them to go and read the history, it's going to be it has to be in picture form and in like a space of a minute or 2 minutes, and that's about it. Yeah. Our attention span is growing smaller. And actually, the science, I think we should actually do a show about that. The fact that our brain capacity is also shrinking. Yeah,
Yes.
because of social media. And we have to fight that. We have to fight that culture because African tradition taught us to retain information. And in fact, if you listen to our mothers and our grandmothers, in fact, my mother till today, she can, maybe not now, but because her mind is not quite there, but for a long time, she knew everybody's telephone numbers by heart. And most women know their children's numbers and even their friends' numbers. It doesn't matter how long they are, they memorize them. We should not actually encourage this fast food kind of learning experiences or attitude. We should learn to actually delve into the information because this is how we will be defeated by refusing to learn history. We'll be refusing to take time and to learn and to teach our minds to retain information and to debate it and to open our mouths and speak, even if we sound silly on this platform, as long as you're not rude or deliberately, insulting anyone, even if you sound ignorant, it's better to open your mouth and speak and be corrected because that is how we grew up. Being corrected all the time, that's how children learn, by being corrected. Open your mouth, speak, and be corrected. So anyway, I really appreciate, I know there's going to be many of you going to be listening. I encourage you to be listening to this as a podcast on your phone. When you're going to work, you can put it on your ears. You can listen all the way to work. You can listen on long drives. Some people have very long commutes. Yeah, we have a long show going, and it's always going to be edifying and teaching you new things. And please also share your views, in the comment section. So I hope that you're going to keep on growing the channel. And remember that there's also another channel called Sound Candid Live Talk that comes at around 11:30 or 12 o'clock. Sometimes I'm able to join, sometimes I'm not. I'm going to try to join today because tomorrow is the election. But I also wanted to talk about the election, say one last word that actually, apparently I heard from somebody who's in the US that, and I believe Wairimu would confirm this, that already they received their election papers, their ballot papers. They were actually sent about 2 weeks ago to everybody by mail, if you're interested. So they've already voted. They voted. They've already sent back their votes. Yeah. So it's not that we're waiting for tomorrow for everybody to vote. Some people have already voted. Yeah, and apparently we're expecting, there in the US are expecting to get the results in a week or so. So let's not expect to see the results tomorrow. We'll just see the voting process going on tomorrow. Can you imagine? You want to say anything, Susan? Last.
Thank you for having me on the show. It's always very engaging to have a chat and all that. Like you said, it'd be good if people could listen on their long drives and just to even comment, because when you comment, we'll also read and also comment or like and all that, respond to you in that way. So you're most welcome to the show. Thank you so much, Zapayoro. I learned a lot about the importance of paying attention to the geopolitical aspects so that we can understand what is happening and why the voting in another country is so important to the country that you're in, especially America and the other big, is it First Nations or what do you call them? Superpowers. Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Okay, everybody, goodbye and have a good night or good day, and happy voting day tomorrow, Americans. Everybody in the US, have a happy voting day, and please remember to vote correctly because we in Africa are waiting. Thank you very much, Wairimo. Wairimo says, last word, she says, Egypt maintains a very strong lobbying presence in Washington, D.C. That's why US treats them as partners, not subjects. Oh boy, Wairimo, we really need you in the studio. You let me know when you're free so that you can come on board, because I believe as Apayoro understands what you're talking about better than us. And Kenya should consider having a strong lobbying presence in Washington, D.C. Yeah, we should. I agree, Wairimu. We should consider that. And on that note, thank you very much all and take care. Bye-bye. To-dos. All right.